Hi, welcome to Bob Elliot's Music Makers and another edition of Generations in Music. And with me tonight is a very special guest, Alec Shantzis. Hi, Alec.
Hi, how's it
Welcome to Generations in Music. So happy to be here with you.
I'm glad to be here too.
Excellent too. So as this show is all about the artist and not about everybody else, about you, why don't you just let us know who you are, how you got started in music, and just give us a general outline of Alec.
Well, I've been playing music since I was 5. I went to music school for piano. My degree from college was jazz studies. And after college, I moved back to New York and started gigging. And over time, built myself a reputation and was fortunate to work with some amazing people over time.
Really? Wow. Well, you have an illustrious career, as our slideshow is showing over here. But really, what did it take for you to get to the stage where you're able to go and actually come to New York, meet these people, and get ingratiated into the music business? Because there's a lot more that goes on before you even make that step. You grew up where exactly?
Well, I grew up in Queens until 7th grade, then we moved to Nanuet. To answer your question, there's a number of things I think people that people can do. One is, doesn't matter if you're playing a little rinky-dink gig at somebody's wedding or whatever, you approach it 100% like it's the most important gig you ever did. You go, if you put your hands on the instrument, you do it with a full heart and completely.
And you use your skills at the time, you do your best of your ability. That's all you can give them at the time,
yes.
Full 100%.
Yeah, doing your best is really important.
And what about personality? Because I mean, just from the short time we've been talking prior to us doing this interview, you seem to come across as an affable guy that's really easy to talk to. You're open to things.
Yeah, you know, once, I don't know when the picture comes up, but I did a lot of work with David Morales in the 90s, doing remixes of some pretty amazing records. And once David said to me, "You know why you're here?" And I didn't know what to say, so I said, "I don't know." He goes, "Because I want you here."
Wow.
It's like, that's what you're saying. It's like, if you're able to kind of be somebody else's hands or be their conduit for what they want to express, like if you're working for somebody, it's one thing if you're creating your own thing.
Right.
Then you have 100% freedom. But if you're working for somebody, I always approach it as if I'm not important. I want to be transparent and help them get what they want to get out of it.
Right. This is a really important aspect of a band and how the business works. And you know, if you're a young musician up and coming, listening to this, you don't get to work with these people unless they like you, right? I mean, really, and you're able to give them what they need, but in a way that helps them get their vision out, and that's really a tool, isn't it?
Well, yes, and being aware of what's going on around you. Once I was doing a record I did a bunch of records along with David Morales with a Grammy-winning DJ named Frankie Knuckles. Nicest guy you ever met. And we were in the studio when I first started working for him once, and I was playing something I was trying out, and I was excited about it, and he was kind of sitting there. And he had asked me to do something else, but he was being very patient.
Right.
And I realized after a minute, I'm like, "You don't want me to do this, right? You want me to do what you asked?"
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah."
Wow.
Like you got to kind of.
But he was patient, and
he was patient.
But he liked you, so and you were courteous.
But also, I mean, the point I'm attempting to make is that being aware, being sensitive to the person you're working with and their needs more than your own.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. It sounds like
sublimating your own ego.
Right. That's the side men and women in music, and you're there to make the artist appear, get their vision and get them out on and the best they can.
Yes.
And that's something I think that people, do they teach you that in school?
No.
Right?
No, I mean, I was very lucky, I guess. My mom was a social worker and ran the largest
Really?
mental institution in New York for 11 years.
Really?
So I was raised by somebody who kind of preached that anyhow.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting story in itself.
Yeah.
But you think that gives you your personality, just that whole background of...
I don't know if it gives me my personality, but it certainly gave me my awareness of other people.
Right. Wow. That's great. That's great. Great advice for any aspiring musician.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember your early days in New York, coming here? What you did and how you got from there to Ashford and Simpson and all the other greats? Was it
the early days? My first apartment in New York was on 179th Street, literally overlooking the ramp to the George Washington Bridge. So many cars went by every day that I would clean my windowsill, and the next day, if I went like this on my windowsill, it was black soot. That's how much exhaust went by my. But that was my first apartment on 179th Street with a guitarist that I was doing. He had gigs with this thing called HAI, Hospital Audiences Incorporated or something. And we actually played, you know the jail that you see to the side of the Triborough Bridge when you go over it?
Right, yeah.
We did a gig in that jail.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, but to start, you do everything.
Right. You just
You
take...
know, whatever it pays, whoever it's with, I did everything I could.
Do you remember your first big break, like when something really clicked, or was it a slow progression of steps?
Kind of both.
Really?
I mean, my first break was really my first musical directorship, which was with an artist named Joyce Sims that you may not remember. She sadly passed away last year or the year before. But we toured England and Wales and the Netherlands, and that was the first time I was ever musical director.
Really?
And that was a good experience.
Really?
But
Yeah.
it was kind of the first big thing I did.
Right, and the steps to being a musical director, that in itself that's a lot of responsibility. Is that something you enjoy doing? Or
I
you're
do.
good
I
at
do
it?
like directing, and I am good at it.
Well, obviously, right, from who you've worked with.
I am good at it. It's a skill you develop.
Right.
It takes time, you know.
Yeah, it must. I'm sure it's complicated because you're dealing with 6, 7 people sometimes, different instruments and
different personalities.
different personalities.
Different personalities for sure.
We know about the personalities. There's a lot of drama in the music business. So my thing is, thick skin, don't take it personal. Let it go.
Well, that's a very important skill. Not taking things personally.
Right.
You know, I mean, to be able to listen to someone who's not happy with you and thank them for telling you what's on their mind.
Wow, that's big.
Is, you know, important.
What do you think it is that people see in your playing that allows them to hear that this guy is right for me? Is it you're versed in so many styles, or is it that you have a unique touch?
That's a good question. I think some of it, I don't know if I can say one thing is all of it, but some of it is that as I was learning, I used to choose someone and study them. And like I would transcribe their solos and learn how they played and listen to their listening. You got to listen a lot.
So expand on that a little bit, the listening part. You mean listening to what they're saying or what you're from their recordings or?
You know the word gestalt?
I know of it.
Right. Gestalt means like the central thing of something, right? What's central to something. Right. So if you study a pianist, you may not be able to play exactly what he or she played, but if you can grab their central vibe, like and be able to kind of use that and repeat it, that gives you a trick in your bag. And I always approached it as like trying to get as many tricks in my bag as I could.
That's interesting because that's a little like that's something that you don't think about, but I understand as a sideman or woman, you would need to create something for each artist different, and you need to know where that came from. So being versed in and where the music is, being open to different music is probably beneficial.
Yes, absolutely.
To not closing your mind into one style, and it allows you to grow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I came up in high school listening to rock and roll.
Oh, really?
And then went to school to study jazz. My dad listened to a lot of jazz, and my mom listened to a lot of jazz, but they had completely different tastes in jazz. My mom liked the more improvisational kind of jazzy stuff.
Really?
My dad hated it. My dad liked the pop side of really good jazz singers. So he would listen to Ella Fitzgerald or Joe Williams or Frank Sinatra, but they're very center of the road pop stuff. And my mom, like, she more like the jazzy
free jazz.
Yeah,
Really?
She was more.
I think that goes in my household too. Like, I'm a little bit more with I like vocalists more than instrumentation, but I like music all around. But anyway, so that was an interesting household. So you were exposed to a lot of great music.
Yeah, and also, like what you said about liking vocalists, I've always loved vocalists and enjoyed. Like, accompanying a vocalist is very different than accompanying, than playing in a band and just, soloing and doing it. Like, when I'm accompanying a vocalist, I literally watch them breathe.
Really?
Especially in jazz, because, jazz isn't always steady tempo. It can be, there's a push and pull of the tempo. And so I literally will watch someone's body, and I know, like, I can be ready to play, and I will. You feel like a moment of almost anxiety, like waiting. Okay, do I go? Do I
right.
go? And you watch till they go, and then
Right. Hold on for that last second. But it does matter, because the drama comes from the band uniting around that vocal.
With singers, it's very interesting. Some singers like to be pushed. Some singers like to lag behind.
Yeah.
Some singers like steady tempo, some like it to waver, and then there's some who like different things on different songs. It's really, especially if it's a blind date where you don't know the person,
right?
And you're playing with them for the first time, or accompanying them for the first time. It takes a real awareness of what they're asking for with their body language.
Really?
Yeah.
And the piano is so integral in the vocal and the piano. I mean, it really is the connection. Usually the pianist is the leader, or some degree of the vocalist is looking over, because the expressions on the piano are able to follow. I see that from my experience.
It's funny, I was teaching, I teach, and I was teaching my students about following a conductor.
Right.
And one of the things they taught me when I was taught conducting is, if you want someone to do something, you can't say go, because they missed it, right? You do what's called a preparatory beat. So preparatory beat, you go up, and when you come down, that's when they make. So you practice that, and you teach them to know that. But if you're playing piano, you can't do that.
Right.
So unless it's a moment where you're holding the pedal and you can kind of do that. But generally, you have to kind of get the people who are under your directorship to acknowledge and get comfortable with following you doing this.
So that's what's going on these stages.
You do the same thing with your hand that you do with your head, but over time, I was fortunate to work with the same group of musicians for many years, and over time, they became used to my style of directing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
How exciting that is to be able to nod, and the rest of the band responds with a nod.
Well, you got to kind of train them to do that.
Really?
I mean, a lot of guys can follow from the beginning because they've followed a million guys. But some people, you kind of got to work with them, and
the awareness
get them
of
used to
where to look for the signals to go, because your eyes on the lead, and you're doing this and that, and you're like, okay, we're going there. Fantastic and interesting to see from behind the scenes how this all works out. So you've been through many years of now playing with professionals, top professionals, but I did read in your bio that you're also doing education now with children. And why did you go into that? Was it something you felt compelled to do, or was it you know,
I wish I could say it was that. It wasn't.
really?
My daughter, so I raised 3 kids by myself, and my daughter came home from school one day, and this is before I had the kids, and she said to me, "Daddy, I hate my music teacher."
Really?
And she said, so I went to the principal, and I asked him if he's getting a new music teacher. And that she had big hair, my daughter, she was 8, and she looked at me, and she paused, and she goes, and he said yes, so I told him all about you, and he wants you to call him.
Really? What an amount.
That's really
how And why did you do it? Because that's a commitment.
Well, so, it's a good question, but, you know, for the young musicians who are watching, you have your plans, and life does what life does. So, when September 11th happened, the next year, the music business, the music business tanked. There was almost nothing. I mean, nobody was getting married, there were no concerts, there was nothing. It was like COVID time, right? But just for a different reason. And the only thing I had that year was I did a tour with Anita Baker for a little while.
Really?
Yeah. Which is a whole chapter in a book by itself. But it was during that time that my daughter came to me.
Really? Oh, wow.
And the business was so slow at that time, I'm like, yeah, let me try it out. And the first year of teaching, I had very mixed feelings.
Really, yeah.
Because there were things I liked about it. It was certainly nice, and you freelance musicians would appreciate that a steady paycheck is a steady paycheck.
It's huge.
Not something you're used to.
It's huge, right, exactly.
And not to mention medical insurance and all the other things that come with teaching. But creatively, my life before I was teaching was more fulfilling. Also, the first year I was teaching, I think it was the first year, I had a song that I co-wrote on the movie The Devil Wears Prada.
Right, yes, I saw that in your credits.
Yeah, and that was exciting. I mean, I made some money doing that.
Right, so like now you're teaching, so that's at like 5 days a week?
I was working, well, once my kids came to me and I was like a single dad, I was working 6-7 days. I worked day and night. There were times where I would teach and then go gig and then teach and gig and teach all 5 days a week, and then over the weekend I would have 2 or 3 gigs. And I was pretty tired.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
But it's obviously fulfilling in if you look back, because you're still doing it. And if it wasn't in some capacity, you would have walked, because you certainly have a career. You have other options you could probably have chosen later.
Yeah.
But
it's weird. My career has kind of gone different ways, and I guess I have something to do with it. But it weaves, you know.
I'm sure the kids are appreciative, because having a good teacher that really cares is huge in our and today especially.
Lately, I've been, you know, we're in this strange era that's post-COVID.
Yeah.
And I think in concert with that, people tend to look for one answer, but I think that's a mistake in this particular time, because it's not just COVID, and it's not just cell phones, and it's not just videos, and it's not just the change in demeanor in our society. It's all those things in concert together.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And the net effect that I'm seeing is that children are not as skilled or experienced at focusing now.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm really working a lot with my students on doing their best and refocusing themselves. Like, I'm trying to teach them, when you get distracted, come back to what you're doing.
Right.
Because it's one thing to say, do your work, but it's another thing to say, is this your best?
Right.
Come back to doing your best. And that's where I spend a lot of time on that.
Really? But that's a skill set that well, I've read that music has that capacity to get your brain involved and keep it involved, and you need to use all your senses and everything. And having that in
Doing
this
music
world
is like doing
right.
push-ups for your brain.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way. It gives you
Because it's one thing to, if you have to sing a note, that's da, but it's another thing while you're singing it to count 1, 2, stop. So I'll work with students to do both at the same time. And they don't know that they're learning this, but they're learning the skill that uses their brain more
right.
than other activities.
So I think the one thing I've, through my years of living and realizing is, and I thank my mother to this day for my clarinet lessons, and I learned how to be involved, and you can always come back to it. So just if you're listening. Yeah.
I believe that even one semester as a kid
right.
of music lessons is life-changing.
I agree. I've seen it because I work with a lot of adults, avocational musicians, and they can't thank their parents enough for their even though they, at the time, they were giving them a hard time.
Yeah. But the thing is that without that, you don't have appreciation for what it takes to do an instrument, to perform, and how many, when you watch, like when we were kids, if you watch television, there were less television stations now then than now. If you watched some show and they had like Heifetz or some classical guy on, even if you didn't like classical music, you would sit there and you'd be like, wow, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't like the music, you'd still be like that guy. Now, the way the society is and the way kids are, they're like, yeah, it's not my style. I don't like it.
Right. It's true.
So it's a very different orientation.
There's a lot of choices today in music. I think I got exposed to classical through Liberace. That was my guy through television shows. So anyway, this is great. You're contributing to music, to the education. You're really moving forward, because that's what you're doing with teaching. Mm-hmm. So we have a whole slideshow here, and this is probably just some of your pictures from years and years ago, or maybe current, that have happened and throughout your life. And these pictures, to each one of them has a story. Do you mind if
Not at all.
Would that be like something you'd like to go through and explain what we're seeing and the artists that you're working with?
Sure, I got to preface it by saying I wish I had not been so shy about taking pictures earlier in my career, because a lot of people I worked with that I wish I had photos of, I don't. Okay, this is Freddie Jackson. I was fortunate to work with Freddie with Barry Eastman, and I got to know Freddie a little bit, and I got to accompany him a bunch at Ashford and Simpson's Club. Freddie had a bunch of hits, amazing voice and amazing singer, and I was lucky just to get to work with him and know him a little bit.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. There you go.
This is DJ David Morales, who I gotta thank always, because he believed in me. He had me on a bunch of I got to record with Mariah Carey with him, and with a bunch of like really popular dance artists.
Wow.
Yeah, this is at my old studio at my old place.
I see back there, is that an Emmy or an Oscar?
It's an Emmy.
Wow.
There's a picture, and I'll tell you about that. This is Bruno Mars, and that's me, and that's Ron Grant, who Ron used to work at CBS Sony, but he was an amazing singer. So sadly, he's not with us anymore. But Ron came to me. We were playing a club that was partially owned by Jay-Z, and Ron came to me and he said, Bruno Mars is coming in tonight. You got to learn this song and put headphones on.
There you go. Instant. Learn quick.
I concentrated so hard because the song had an edit in it, and it was unusual. I remember when we were on stage, I did the edit, and Ron thought I had made a mistake, and he looked at me like, he gave me like a dirty look for a second, and then he realized it was okay because Bruno Mars caught it. Bruno Mars is very bright and a very, very nice guy. Really a good singer. Was under the stage at City Center with the band I assembled. We did a tribute to Earth, Wind and Fire, and got to do what an incredible experience.
Great.
We got to meet, after this, I got to meet Maurice White, and just a great experience. And the dancers had been practicing with a boombox.
Really?
So when we came in, the band copied all these Earth, Wind, and Fire songs exactly. And the dancers were so excited, and it was like a circle of energy. It just got more and more, because we were enjoying them, and they were enjoying us, and we were enjoying them. And
amazing.
It just got more and more excited. And also Judith Jameson was the director of Alvin Ailey at that time, and she's just a powerhouse of a person. This was in Harlem. That's Najee, the sax player, and I got to work with Najee long before this, and co-wrote a song on one of his albums. This was for the Von Harper's Quiet Storm live radio show that he used to do live. John Adams was the musical director. John's a keyboard player too, and I was a keyboard player. John was Melba Moore's musical director for a while, and that's what this is from. It's an old picture.
Well, this is obviously a short interview on a long life of music, and we've only scratched the surface with these pictures here. So I hope someday we can do another interview. You'll come back
anytime.
Oh, and there's a classic that we cannot
Nick
ignore.
And Val, Ashford and Simpson.
Right, Ashford. You've spent, from what I've read, 20 years at the Sugar Bar.
Well, they opened a club. This was their second club. Their first club was called 2020. It was down off Park Avenue back in the 80s, and they opened a second club that was much smaller. And what a prince of a guy Nick was. He was so nice to me. I mean, this is kind of an odd story, but I found out I had diabetes, and I lost a lot of weight to take care of myself, and none of my clothes fit me. But I had also had 3 kids move in with me. I was just a new teacher. I wasn't making a lot of money, and I couldn't really go out and buy myself a new wardrobe. Nick offered to take me shopping.
Really?
And I knew just from his personality, he wouldn't let me pay for anything. Okay. And I was shy about saying yes, so I didn't take him up on it, but he was so nice. He was just a really nice guy. And Val is, aside from being a great person, she is brilliant. If you listen to Ashford and Simpson's songs, there's something they do in the writing. Valerie wrote a lot of the music, and Valerie did something that Burt Bacharach also does. Writes asymmetrically. So everything isn't in 4s and 2s and 8s. It's not all symmetrical.
Wow.
So Valerie, if you listen to her songs, are very challenging to learn. Yeah.
Wow.
And she's an amazing piano player.
And this was a big part of your life. Was 20 years
20
at the
years.
Sugar Bar with whoever walked in.
Yep.
I think you met our producer, one of our producers there at the Sugar Bar, Andrea Watts. So that was a great place to meet.
I met so many people there, from Quincy Jones to Patti LaBelle and Queen Latifah and Howard Stern and Michael Douglas came in, and his wife came in. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Really? Well, hopefully we can do Alex Shantzis Part 2. Because there's so many great stories that we haven't even touched on yet that you have probably in your life in music.
I got lots of stories.
It's been such a great interview and just such a great time meeting you and hearing your life. And we'll definitely do this again.
I would love it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching our Generations in Music, and we'll be back with another episode soon. So stay tuned and see you soon.